رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين المصطفى بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقرآنه الحميد وقوله الحق أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, in a few days, we will be celebrating the birth of the final wasi and successor to the prophets, and that is our Imam, the Imam of our time, Al-Mahdi Al-Muntadhar, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Al-Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Who was born on the 15th of Sha'aban in the year 255 after Hijrah, and assumed the responsibilities of Imamah at the age of 5 years old when his father, Al-Imam Al-Hasan Al-Askari alayhi salatu wa salam, was martyred and poisoned. He went into Ghaybatul Sughra, a period that lasted for about 69 years. And in the year 329, he went into Al-Ghaybatul Kubra. During this period of Al-Ghaybatul Sughra, he assigned deputies, representatives, through whom the Shia used to have access to the Imam, salamullahi alayhi. So if you wanted to access the Imam, you cannot do so directly, but you go to the appointed deputy. After the death of the last one, 3 days before he dies, Imam wrote to him a letter, told him that you will die in 3 days, you're going to leave this world in 3 days, so tell our Shia that after me there are no more appointed deputies, but rather the Shia have to resort back to the fuqaha, the people of hadith, who are known for their nobility, for their piety, God-wariness, taqwa. And that's what established the concept of marja'iyya. Although that establishment of the concept, I should say, was done from the Quran by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that what kind of began that concept of marja'iyya, where basically you don't have any more direct access to the Imam salamullah alayhi, nor indirect access to the Imam. Now you have to resort to the fuqaha, to the ulama. Among the ahadith, or the famous hadiths that we have about the return of the Imam salamullahi alayhi, is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who all the Muslims agree upon, where he says that Al-Mahdi salamullahi alayhi will come at the end of time, لِيَمْلَأَ الْأَرْضَ قِسْطًا وَعَدْلًا كما ملئت أو بعدما ملئت ظلما وجورا. That he will come to fill this earth with justice the way it would be filled, or it will be filled, with injustice, with tyranny, oppression. That's a famous hadith that all Muslims agree upon. They all narrate this hadith. And another hadith that even if there were only one day left on this earth, one day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will extend the length of this day. He makes it so long, such that this Al-Mahdi ajjalallah ta'ala farajahu al-sharif will reappear and establish justice on this earth. So these are hadith that we agree upon. Now, the ayah we just recited from Surah Ar-Rum, ayah 41, we'll take a look at it with regards to the concepts of corruption. And then we'll take a look at this ayah in the context of our 12th Imam, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. The ayah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that fasad, corruption has become prevalent. ظاهر, exposed, explicit. It's become explicit, prevalent. في البر, on land. والبحر, what does bahar mean? Yeah, it doesn't take, opposite of land. Sea, exactly. Pretty good guess. In the land and the sea. So corruption has become prevalent all over the world, on land and in sea. What is the cause of this corruption? Allah says, بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ, because of people's actions. It is people's actions that is causing all this corruption, all these problems that we're observing in the sea and in the land. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds, Allah says, لِيُرِيَهُمْ بَعْضًا, to show them some of what they did. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, to show them some of their problems. In other words, all these disasters that we are seeing, it is not a direct proportionality between the number of corruption and the disasters. If that were the case, if that proportionality was directly proportional, we would see many, many more problems on this earth. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy, He forgives sometimes. He forgives. So even though He's forgiving, yet we're still seeing an increase in the corruption and the problems that we see. So why does Allah do that? He says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, maybe they'll get back. Maybe they'll start thinking, like, you know what, maybe I should stop doing what I'm doing. Let me go back to obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or at least let me go back to being fair with people, dealing with people fairly, justly. That might kind of give the people a wake-up call. So one of the reasons, or among the reasons why we are seeing increased in problems in the world is the people's own actions. I was doing some research just today when I was preparing for this lecture. There is an article published by The Economist. You know that magazine, the journal. Economist, in August 29, 2017. Just last year. August 29, 2017. They published an article where they say the number of natural disasters globally since 1970, the number of natural disasters globally has increased by 4 times, quadrupled. To last year, which was, they say, the peak. Last year was the peak, at 400 natural disasters that were recorded last year, globally, 400. Although they say the number of casualties, the fatalities, is decreasing. In 1970, they say, for example, 200,000 people got killed from natural disasters. This number is decreasing over the years because the technology is improving, the infrastructure is improving. Our predictions of such natural disasters, I mean, take a look, for example, what happened in the United States last year, the hurricanes that came. You know, there were some predictions, and then people were told to leave, and so on and so forth. So that, of course, minimizes the damage, the human damage. However, the number of natural disasters has increased by 4 times since 1970. If you think about it, that's not too long ago, 1970. I mean, some of people here may have been born in 1970. People remember you remember 1970, Haji? You remember 1970? Yeah. No, you don't remember? Not you, the one behind you, Haji. You know, not you, the one behind you there, yeah. You know, the other day I come in, I see the brothers here, they tell me, this is we call the departure lounge, you know. But the other day I came, I saw a whole bunch of youth, you know, sitting. I told them maybe we should change the name to Arrival Lounge. Arrival. You know, this is Arrival Lounge. So, do you remember 1970, Haji? Does that, you know, remember that very well? Yeah, mashallah, 1970. Feels like yesterday, doesn't it? Yeah. So since 1970 until today, 4 times the natural disasters, to 400 natural disasters. So there is definitely an increase in the natural disasters globally. This comes as a consequence, according to the Quran, to the people's own action. There is increased sin or increased corruption, global corruption. We can take a look at several examples. For example, there is increased in financial corruption globally. In 2006, there was a Nobel laureate who won the Nobel Prize for Peace by the name of Dr. Muhammad Yunus from Bangladesh. He wrote in one of his books, The Social Business, he says that in today's world, 60% of the world's wealth is in the hand of 40% of the world's population. So for example, just to give you an idea, when we talk about financial corruption, if we have a pie or a cake and we make it into 100 slices and there are 100 people in the room, what does logic dictate? Each one gets how many slices? Huh? 1. Ahsant. 100 slices and there are 100 people in the room. Each one gets 1. And that will keep everyone happy, full, no problems. That's what logic dictates. However, what does reality says? What does reality say? Reality says, those 100, I isolate them into 2 groups. 60 on one side and 40 on the other side. These 40 people, I take 60 of the slices and I give it to them. 60 of the slices I give to these 40 people. Each one gets more than 1 slice, more than his share. Okay. Now I have 60 people remaining. And how many slices do I have? Okay. Let me go back. I do apologize. Let me go back. That number was generous. His number was actually even more scary. 94% of the world's wealth is in the hands of 40% of the world's population. Sorry. 94%. So going back to that example. If we have, I mean, logic says each one gets 1 slice, right? 100 people, 100 slice each one. But in reality, in the world, what is happening? I isolate those into 2 groups. 94 people go on one side. Okay. 6 go on to the other side. Okay. And now, I have 100 slices here. I'm going to divide those people, 60 on one side, 40 on one side. 40 people here and 60 people here. I'll take 94 slices and give it to the 40. 94 slices. So each one gets more than 2 slices. Okay. 40 on one side, 60 on the other side. Okay. 94 slices, I give them to the 40. How many slices do I have? 6. And how many people are left? 60. Yallah, go figure it out yourselves. Here are 6 slices, and there are 60 people. What do you think will happen? What's going to happen with those 60 people? War, correct? Survival of the fittest. Somebody is going to punch somebody, kill somebody to get the slice, correct? That is what is happening in the world today. Although logic dictates, each one has enough. They have enough. But what is happening is 40% of the world's population controlling 94% of the world's wealth. Okay? And hence, you see all the problems you see in the world today. Okay? So that's financial corruption that we're observing in the world today. Financial problems. And then there is no surprise when you have this, you have poverty, you have ignorance, you have what you see all over the place. That's financial corruption. That's one problem we have today. Second problem we have, moral corruption. I spoke about that last week. The professor I quoted last week from the University of Oklahoma, professor of political science by the name of Dr. Hertz, he wrote a paper titled The Moral Ecology. He says, just like there are companies who pollute our environment, and now governments are taxing these companies. You hear the carbon tax? Okay. Carbon tax, carbon tax. People who pollute, the idea behind the tax is basically polluters should be taxed. And what do they do with the money of the tax? Theoretically speaking, where is it supposed to go? To offset the pollution, correct? Okay. He says, this is Dr. Hertz, he says similarly, the entertainment industry is causing moral pollution. And therefore, the entertainment industry needs to be taxed so that this money can be set to offset the corruption that they are causing morally. Interestingly. This is in a paper he published back in 1998, 20 years ago. So he says there is increase of moral corruption that we see in the world today. And I don't think it's really difficult to sense that moral corruption that we are seeing today. If you just take a look at television, today's television, compare it with 20 years ago, for example. Look at the kind of shows that are being played on television. And I mentioned last week, our children are watching all these shows, and they are being influenced by them. In fact, never mind our children, we are watching all these shows, and we are also getting influenced by them. Us. Because we don't live on Mars, we live on planet Earth. We are also being surrounded by all these ideologies, all these marketing techniques, so we're being influenced by all this. Okay. So when it comes to financial, there is financial corruption in the world today. There is moral corruption in the world today. Then there is also one more form of corruption. Ideological corruption. Ideologies are being corrupted. Pay attention to this one. Before, centuries ago, when there used to be one group conquering another group, invaders coming in. The invaders, what they really want is control, power. Okay? They don't really care about your ideologies. Their biggest target, their biggest focus is not to really change your ideology. What they really care for is taking your resources. That's what they want. They want the power. Okay? The power to take your resources. I mean, think about, for example, the Mughals. The Mughals, when they started conquering, they did not care about changing people's ideologies. They cared about resources, expansion, more land, more power. In fact, interestingly, the Mughals, because they themselves lacked, you know what's interesting? The Mughals, they themselves lacked solid ideology. They did not have like a belief system. They did not have a strong, for example, system of religious beliefs. And therefore, when they came to the Muslim world, what happened to the Mughals after 1 or 2 generations? You find them becoming Muslims. Some of their leaders became Muslims. In fact, some of them became even Shia, followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Why? Because their concern was not to change the ideology. Their concern was resource. We want money, power, whatever the resources you have. So when they came, Islam was at the time very strong in its aqa'id, its belief. It had a very strong foundation. Therefore, those guys actually melted, although they're the conquerors. But they melted into the system. Okay. That's what conquerors in the past used to look for. Things changed, according to historians, with the French invasion of Egypt, back at the time of Napoleon. Napoleon invaded Egypt. But he did poorly. He did really bad when he invaded. However, something he did differently, though. When Napoleon came to Egypt, he did not just bring forces. He actually brought scientists with him. He wanted people to study the science of Egypt. What science they have? He brought, for example, some mappers, people to map. He brought, and so on. He did not just bring, the troops. Let's go just there and conquer and take whatever we can and go out. No, that was not just the ideology. It was something beyond that. Scientists, scholars, let's go study. What else can we gain? And how can we train those people? How can we change them? Now, it is not just an imperial, powerful invasion just for the resources. Now it is an invasion for ideologies. And that's how things changes. This is back at the time of the Napoleon Bonaparte. Things changed since then, and therefore, you find the imperial powers, when they started coming into countries, they not only started looking for the resources, they started to change ideologies. Sometimes not through destruction, but rather through building. For example, I'm not sure here if there are some people from, you remember from Pakistan, India, I don't know about that part of the region. But I know, for example, when you come to the Middle Eastern countries, when the British came and the French came, sometimes you find them building roads. I don't know if in Pakistan or India, did they even have roads before, like roads, asphalt roads, like proper roads. Did they even exist before the British or not? I'm not sure. Okay. But they started building roads. They started building hospitals. They started building schools. They started building universities. So they did not come just to destroy. They came to build. But what was the idea behind building schools, universities, hospitals? What do you do there? What do you do in schools? You teach. Exactly. Let's come and teach you modern sciences, modern language, the English language. They're now English schools, British schools. So people started putting their children in there. What happens? They started taking people away from their religion, away from their culture, away from their Quran. And the same thing carried to university. So you find there was an attack on ideology now. A change in ideologies. And the more you weaken people's ideologies, the more control you can have over them. Okay. And therefore, if you guys remember back in the maybe 60s, 50s, people who used to go to university, they were known as the modern people. You remember that? The modern people. People who did not go to university, what does that make them? Unmodern. So those who study, they are the modern. You don't study, you're uneducated, you're ignorant, and you're not modern. Okay. Then this continued. Those who studied, generally speaking, not always, generally speaking, they were less religious. Those who did not study, they were, generally speaking, more religious. So what happened? Modernity was associated with what? Education. You're educated, you're modern. You're uneducated, you're ignorant, you're religious. Do you see how that precipitated came? How that precipitated later on? People started thinking of things that way. So let's go and become educated. But if you become educated, then you cannot be religious and educated at the same time, because you cannot. It's an oxymoron. You have to be modern. And that's how the ideology started to play in. Things started to change. Today, with the age of the internet, you don't need any more imperial power to go and physically build hospitals and do all that stuff, build schools, build universities. You don't need that anymore. You have the internet. You have satellite television. And that's exactly, today go to Iraq, go to Pakistan, go to India, go to Africa, go to the Middle East, and talk to the people over there. Tell them, ask them, what shows are you watching? Ask them. Let them tell you what kind of shows they're watching. One of the mu'mineen tells me one day, he says, I am from Pakistan. Although he says, I was born in America. He was born in America. He's a mu'min. He says, when I was like about 18 years old, my father took me to Pakistan. Now the guy is born in America, but he's from a mu'min family. So the parents, usually look after what shows the children watch, what kind of things, and so on and so forth. He says, I went back there, and the people over there, some of the family relatives, oh, you come from America. Do you watch this show? Do you watch that show? Do you know this song? Have you heard that singer? He says, I live in America, but I've never listened to any of this. I've never watched any of this. He says, really? Seriously? He says, yes. So what is happening now is an ideological invasion. There is ideological corruption. To corrupt the people ideologically. Their religion, stay away from it. Morally, corrupt them. And then when that happens, then other kinds of corruption will come into place. If you corrupt people's religion, khalas. You've succeeded, because now you can do whatever you want. If the aqeedah is corrupted, if your faith, your belief system is corrupted, khalas, you can do whatever you want now. And that's what the system is doing. At the global level, in a very subtle way, but now it's becoming more and more explicit. So you find financially there is corruption. Morally, corruption. Ideologically, corruption. What consequence does this have? All the problems that we are seeing in the world. According to the Quran, they say this corruption does not come without consequences. What are the consequences? More natural disasters, more problems. You'll find hurricanes, earthquakes, disasters, poverty, more and more, although they say global poverty is decreasing. They say global poverty is decreasing. That's what they say. I was reading an article just last year in the Globe and Mail newspaper. You know something? In Canada, the top 2 richest people in Canada, the top 2, if you combine their wealth, their assets, it is equal to 11 million of the poorest Canadians. So 11 million Canadians, the poorest, from the poorest Canadians, you put all their wealth together, combined, it equals the wealth of the top 2 richest people in Canada. 2 people. Islam is not a socialist religion. We're not a socialist where you say you have to divide the wealth equally among all people. No, Islam encourages business. In fact, Islam says people should all be in business. The hadith says 90% of the rizq, sustenance, is in business. Go do business. But not the way that the world is running business today. You have a gigantic corporation who swallows everyone. I was reading just a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the last small hardware store in Edmonton closed about 4 or 5 years ago. After being in business for 45 years, they say. 45 years the man was in business, in hardware, selling hardware. But now with all these gigantic corporations, he cannot compete anymore. He's out of business. Khalas. Another corporation, big corporation, I don't want to mention it, but you guys all know it, and many of us shop from there. It went into some city. All the small stores shut down. A small furniture store closed. A small hardware store closed. And then they asked the people who are managing this big box store, they said, so what do you think about all these people who are losing their jobs? They say, no, they're not losing jobs. We're going to hire them to work for us. So from being a business owner where you're generating your own income, now you become basically an employee. You're being paid the minimum wage, and now you're being governed by the system. Okay. Is that fair? Think about it. Imagine if being in business for 40 years, some big, gigantic store comes and shuts you off. Khalas. That's it. You have family, you have children, khalas, everything is gone. Now you have to go work for them because that's the only job. Or you move somewhere else. But it's not easy to move. You guys know. It's not easy to move. This is how the system runs today. That's why Islam is not socialist. But Islam says you got to be fair. Be fair when you deal with people. Have business, no problem. Encourage business. But don't have one gigantic corporation that can shut everyone else down. Okay. If you go to Africa, I've seen it in Mombasa when I went there many times. If you go to Africa, you see this little store that sells, for example, hardware. And not all kinds of hardware, maybe just few pieces of hardware. Then there's another small store that sells other pieces of hardware. So when you go to one store, you say, do you have this piece? He said, no, I don't have it. Go to that store. He has it. Go to that shop. Have you seen that? Okay. And then there's another store who sells, for example, whatever, groceries, small groceries. And not all kinds of groceries. For example, vegetables and fruits. If you want juice, if you want something, you go to the other store, and so on and so forth. So everybody is living. Everybody is making business. Everybody is surviving. And everybody is a business owner, which is good. This is what Islam encourages. That's what Islam encourages. But when you have corruption, such that now it's gigantic corporations who come and sweep everyone under their carpet, that's where the Islam has a problem with. So you find poverty increasing in that context. You find people, morality decreasing, problems increasing, and so on and so forth. And that's why we read this ayah in Dua al-Ahad. Dua al-Ahad, which if you read Mafatih al-Jinan, it is narrated from Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Imam al-Sadiq says, if you read this Dua al-Ahad 40 consecutive days, then insha'Allah you will become among the companions of Al-Imam al-Mahdi al-Muntadhar ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. In that dua, we say, وَأْمُرْ اللَّهُمَّ بِهِ بِلَادَكَ وَأَحْيِي بِهِ عِبَادَكَ. Oh Allah, make him build the land. Build your land. Now people say, well, do we need any more building in the world? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Go to some parts of Africa. Do you see what kind of way people are living? Go some parts in Iraq. See how people are living? Go to some, never mind even these, what they call third world countries here. Go to some native reserves. I was reading in the papers, some native reserves do not even have a high school. No high school. So, you know when they were talking about residential schools and the whole truth and reconciliation, they were talking, do you remember that? About 2-3 years ago? I one day went to the Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs. They had a booth. They had a booth at the Truth and Reconciliation, some convention that they had here in Edmonton Convention Center, at the Shaw Convention. I went there. There was the booth for the Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs. There was a lady standing there. And she was talking about, residential schools. I told her, when did the last residential school close? She said in 1994. That was the last residential school. I told her, okay. I told her, I heard in some native reserves, they still don't have high schools. She said, yeah, that's true. I said, so then what difference have you guys made? And instead of taking the children at the age of 4 or 5 to take them to residential schools, now you've made it into 15. When the child goes to high school, he has no high school to go to. So he has two options. Either he becomes uneducated, khalas, he quits school, or he has to leave his family, leave his reserve at the age of 15, a teenager, and goes and lives God knows where, so that you can provide him with education. Then what difference have you guys made? All you've done is you push the age of the residential schools. And this age of 15, he goes, he's exposed to this whole world, he's never left his reserve, he's not with his family, he's not with his tribe, and then he may be more susceptible to drugs, alcohol, other problems. So then how have you solved the problem? She looked at me and she said, well, maybe you need to talk to the officials about it. I'm like, well, why don't you talk to them about it? Aren't you from the Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs? She told, wallah, this is what she said. She said, they don't listen to us. I told him, if they don't listen to you and you guys like the government, you think they're going to listen to me? So when we talk, about building, the Imam Salamullah alayhi builds. Even these parts of the world needs building. He builds infrastructure, he builds resources, he builds places, water so they can drink water. So we read in this dua, wa'mur, oh Allah, make him build your land. And make him revive your servants, revive people, bring people back to life. Because when people deviate according to the Quran, then they're not alive anymore. That's death. Death. And then we read, فَإِنَّكَ قُلْتَ وَقَوْلُكَ الْحَقِّ. Ya Allah, you have said in the Quran, and what you say is the truth. ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. This ayah. بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. That the corruption has increased, become explicit in the land and in the water because of people's own affairs. So, فَأَظْهِرِ اللَّهُمَّ لَنَا وَلِيَّكَ. Oh Allah, make him come back, and so on and so forth to the end of this dua. So when the Imam Salamullahi alayh comes, he will restore justice. These corruptions that we're seeing, financial corruptions, moral corruptions, ideological corruptions, and the many other corruptions, he will stop them. But then will people be happy with that? No, people won't be happy. So there will be war. In fact, some of the so-called Shia will turn against him. If I'm a Shia or a so-called Shia, but I have all the businesses and whatever, and now he comes and says all this business has to be now shared by the people, or it has to be distributed fairly. Fairly. We don't say equally, but fairly. I don't like that. So what am I going to do? Subhanallah. And now you see why the 313 are not there yet? The 313? Because if you really look deep inside, if we look deep in our hearts, if the Imam comes and there is my interest versus his interest, what am I going to choose? Am I seriously, from the bottom of my heart, going to choose his interest over my interest? Am I really going to follow him or not? That's a very important question to ask ourselves. Very important question. Something that is very serious. And I will finish with this story. They say there was a sheikh who lived in Iraq in a city called the city of Hilla. City of Hilla is very close to the city of Karbala in Iraq, very close. You may have heard of some ulama or some lecturers with the last name Al-Hilli. That means they come from the city of Hilla, which is close to Karbala. There is a sheikh, I heard the story from one of the ulama of Karbala. He said the story. There was a sheikh in the city of Hilla who lived there by the name of Sheikh Ali. Sheikh Ali one day was thinking to himself, it's like, the number that the Imam Salamullahi alayh needs to reappear is what? What is the number? 313. It's like, really, seriously, we can't get 313 people? That's such a shame. He says, you know what? I'm going to try my part. What? I'm going to take a group of people about this age. This age people. 10, 11, 12-year-olds, give or take. I'm going to take them. I'm going to raise them. Teach them about the love of Imam. Just teach them. Until I get them ready. Okay? So he opens a school where he teaches people from this young age about the love of Imam, how to love the Imam, how to be ready for the Imam, for 40 years. 40 years. So they become, mashallah, older people. After that, he comes one day to the desert. He starts calling, Ya ibn Rasulillah, Ya ibn Rasulillah, you need 313. I managed to get 40 people. 40 people out of all those students I really taught, 40 of them are, mashallah, ready. So you need 313. I got 40, you figure out the rest. If I managed to get 40, you can probably find the remaining number for 313. And he started calling, Ya ibn Rasulillah, Ya Imam al-Zaman. Somebody walks by. He says, Sheikh Ali, what's the problem? What's the matter? Who are you calling? He says, I'm calling the Imam of my time. He says, what do you need him for? He says, well, I have prepared 40 people. 313 is the magic number. Inshallah, he can make 313. He can reappear. This person told him, do you think those 40 are ready? Really? He says, yes. Have you tested them? I've been teaching them for so many years. These guys, I raised them. I raised them. So you're 100% sure about them? He said, yes. He said, Sheikh Ali, let's find out. You bring them this coming Thursday night. You bring them to your house. And I want you to do something. He said, what? He says, bring a butcher and get him to bring 4 sheep to the roof of your house. 4 sheep to the roof of your house and a butcher. And don't tell them The butcher is up on the roof. The 4 sheep is on the roof. They don't know anything. He said, who are you? He said, I'm the one who you've been calling. Ya ibn Rasulullah, yes, it's so good. Is it really? Yes. He said, yes, I'll see you Thursday night at your house, but you don't say anything to anybody. Done. Sheikh Ali goes, brings a butcher who brings 4 sheep to the roof of his house. He invites the 40 students and he tells them, listen people, if you want to see the Imam, come. This is the time. So 40 people gathered, they're ready to see the Imam. So Sheikh Ali comes and says, who is the first person who wants to see the Imam? What do you think happened? The 40 people? Everybody, yes, me, take me. Yeah, I'll go. He chose one person. He says, you come. He goes upstairs to the roof. The Imam Salamullah alayhi is on the roof. The Imam tells the butcher, slaughter the first sheep. They slaughtered the first sheep. And back in the old homes, the drainage sometimes pours into the court of the house. No, not like today you have drainage and all that system. The drain is in the house. You remember the court of the house. So when the blood comes out, where did the drain come? The blood, where did it come? In the court. And where are the people sitting? Right there. So they saw the first person goes up and the blood pours down, mashallah. Sheikh Ali comes down again. He says, who wants to see the Imam now? Who's next? Now what do you think happened? This is a true story, by the way. It's not. Now less people, people are a bit hesitant. Somebody raises, says, I would like to see the Imam. Now remember, these people were raised by Sheikh Ali. They know Sheikh Ali does not lie. He's not a liar. And imagine if you know somebody for 40 years or for 30 years, and you know him, he doesn't lie. And you trust him. You trust him with your life. So those people knew Sheikh Ali when he says the Imam is upstairs, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. Imagine. Now less people wanted to see. But one person does raise his hand. He says, I would like to see the Imam. He goes upstairs, and again, the Imam says to the butcher, now slaughter the second sheep. Again, they see, what do they see? The blood coming into the middle of the house or the court. Sheikh Ali comes down. Now who would like to see the Imam? Now nobody raises his hand anymore. And then they start, you go, you've been wanting to see the Imam for all these years, you go. And then somebody, by force, they raise, okay, he takes the third person up. And they slaughtered the third sheep, the blood comes. He comes the 4th time, now nobody wants to go. The people ran out of the house, So Sheikh Ali goes upstairs. The Imam looks at him, says, Sheikh Ali, these are the 40 you're saying they're ready to see me. These are the 40 that you've been training for the past so many years. And you're saying they're ready, khalas. He says, now you see why we don't come back? We haven't come back yet. Because people are not ready to see us. People are not ready to sacrifice for us. And that's why today, if you go to the city of Hilla, now this Sheikh Ali, I guess, was a sincere man. So Allah wanted to honor him in dunya. In dunya, his house became what they call maqam al-hujjah. Now there is a small maqam, they say the place where Imam Zaman came, salamu, because the Imam came to his house. The Imam came to his house. The story became very popular afterwards. Plus, 3 of his students saw the Imam. The butcher saw the Imam. Sheikh Ali saw. It was not just one person who was just saying the story. People saw. There were eyewitnesses as well who saw. So his house today, if you go to Hilla, there is a small, kind of little, like dome, shrine, little, like not a big deal, a small thing. They say this is the maqam where Imam al-Hujjah was here. Imam was seen here. So Allah wanted to honor this house, the house of this Sheikh Ali. Allah wanted to give him ajr for what he did. But really the question is, are we ready for the Imam salamullahi alayhi? Or are we one of those people who after 30 years or so many years, the minute we see a little bit of a challenge, khalas, we run away. That's what we have to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us inshaAllah and our progeny among the sincere Shia of the Imam salamullahi alayhi. And we have to make sure that we watch our akhlaq, our manners, our aqa'id, our salat, our respect to the parents, our respect to the children, our respect to the mu'mineen, We watch all these things so that inshallah Allah will bless us to be among the Shia of the Imam. It is not difficult to be among the Shia, but it requires some discipline. Some discipline. I usually give this example. It's not difficult to become an A student, but you just have to have some self-discipline. You have to put down, your effort to excel and succeed in life. To succeed in life. And not necessarily succeed in physics and science and mathematics and engineering. No, you can succeed in many ways. People are talented in different ways. People are talented in arts, poetry, in writing stories, journalism, and so on and so forth. People are talented. You can succeed if you just can't discipline yourself a little bit. Similarly here, if we discipline ourselves, inshallah we can succeed. So let's raise our hands in dua on this holy night, on these holy days of this holy month. May Allah answer our dua and make us among the Shia of the Imam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. 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 اللهم اكشف عنا السوء يا الله. اللهم اجعلنا من شيعة الإمام المهدي المنتظر عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف يا الله. نحن وذريتنا إلى يوم الدين يا الله. اللهم اقض حوائج المؤمنين والمؤمنات. شاف وعاف جميع مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اجزهما بالإحسان إحسانا وبالسيئات غفرانا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من شيعته وأنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه وارزقنا شفاعته في الدنيا وفي القبر وفي الآخرة. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. لقضاء الحوائج وشفاء المرضى وكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة ولتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات على الخصوص أمواتنا وأموات الجالسين والحاضرين. رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.